That's not teaching, that's entertainment. I'm not a dancing bear.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Spoiler alert.
My Julius. One student with whom I could engage in an inspiring conversation and thereby win over the entire class.
Episode 3 of the Frasier relaunch demonstrates how awful the show's original Niles idea was. The difficulties Frasier has when he begins his personal and professional lives after moving to Boston are new. He is mostly on his own to deal with his new circumstances because he doesn't appear to stay in touch with his former Cheers pals. Without his brother Niles, who serves as a confidant and helps him process his thoughts, things will get harder for him. Regretfully, David Hyde Pierce declined an invitation from Kelsey Grammer, who not only stars in the revival but also produces it. Over time, it became more and more evident that the original Frasier was a true ensemble show, even if it included a protagonist. Every lovable characteristic that each supporting character has contributed to their adorable personality, and they all worked incredibly well together. But Niles stood out above the others. Pierce's numerous Emmy nominations and victories attest to how well he portrayed the role. Considering this, it makes sense that the new show misses him greatly. But Paramount Plus already had a plan, although a mediocre one, when Pierce agreed to appear. Episode 3 of the Frasier reboot, First Class, demonstrates this. Frasier's initial Niles scheme described co-showrunners Chris Harris and Joe Cristalli have disclosed their original proposal to incorporate Niles in the Frasier revival. Frasier and Niles are acting goofy. They said that the idea was for Frasier and Niles to manage a black box theater. This seemed like a fantastic idea, especially given the couple's love of the arts and culture. It would have exposed the brothers to new experiences as business owners, similar to how the original Frasier was marketed as a family comedy to set itself apart from Cheers, which was a workplace program. Although they did not state whether Martin's death was predetermined for this iteration, given that this was the long-standing assumption, it is most likely the case that the demise of the Crane patriarch was already predetermined. It should come as no surprise that Pierce declined to appear in the Frasier reboot. Because he doesn't want to take a chance on destroying the show's reputation, the actor has been vocally opposed to its revival for a long time. But according to Grammer, his on-screen sibling clarified that he doesn't want to do his highly praised act again. Additionally, he expressed his opinion that Niles is no longer relevant, which makes sense given how the character ended in the first season of the program. As a result, Paramount Plus was compelled to adapt the show's storyline and have Frasier return to Boston at the conclusion. Frasier recalls Freddie's and Niles' tragic restaurant venture, Niles and Frasier. Even just seeing Niles in any capacity during the Frasier remake would have been a pleasure for alums of the original show. But First Class makes clear how disastrous the initial scheme is for Pierce's persona. Originally, it was planned for Frasier and Niles to have their own businesses, but the Seattle-based series has already demonstrated why this is a bad idea. Freddie tells him of the day he and Niles bought a restaurant in an attempt to turn it around, while making fun of his father's admission that he wanted to quit teaching at Harvard. They were forced to abandon the project after just one night of failure. There were other instances in which Frasier and Niles' restaurant endeavor in The Innkeepers was a failure. They had previously made an abject failure of an attempt to write a book together. Although this was a reoccurring theme in the original program, it's safe to assume that it occurred frequently before the events of the show, especially in light of Martin's remarks regarding his boys' incapacity to cooperate. Considering this, there isn't much new to the franchise when they collaborate to manage a black box theater. More significantly, if the show is picked up for a second season, the premise is untenable. What the reunion story of Niles should have been. Niles and Frasier are sitting on the couch, with Frasier wearing a neutral expression. It's unclear if Niles' story for black box theater is the only one that Pierce was offered, but it makes sense why he declined it if it was the only choice available. As previously stated, it doesn't provide him with a fresh role to play. That doesn't mean Paramount Plus couldn't have come up with other ideas for Niles to appear in the Frasier reboot, though. Just because the original concept was awful. The old Frasier is renowned for his ability to tread lightly on the edge between drama and humor, unlike Cheers. Even with its nuanced humor, it could address important subjects. Niles and Frasier are trained to help others deal with personal concerns because they are psychiatrists, but it's not the same when they have to heed their own counsel. It's an interesting idea that would involve all three generations of Cranes to re-examine their relationship with their father following his death while simultaneously being parents to their own children, Freddie and David. When and how will Niles appear in the Frasier reboot? Niles and Frasier are examining something within Frasier.I in the Frasier reboot. None of the original cast members have returned as series regulars. It now has a valid reason to exclude those players. who are ostensibly still based in Seattle after moving to Boston. Though just as guest stars, Bebe Neuwirth and Perry Gilpin will reprise their roles as Lilith and Ross. Niles won't be in the Frasier reboot, at least not in the first season, in light of this. But if Paramount Plus decides to give the program another season, Grammer and his colleagues might reach out to Pierce once again about making a possible appearance. It's not impossible that the younger Crane will make an appearance if the revival's creative team presents the actor with a better story idea and its first year receives favorable reviews. From the narration, it doesn't seem like he and Frasier are at odds. David also spends a lot of time in Boston, seeing his uncle in addition to that. It's hard to believe he doesn't share his brother's Beantown escapades with his father. These make it possible for the Frasier relaunch to seamlessly include Niles into the narrative in the event that Pierce decides against moving forward with the project.